My ex-wife really did want to make it work, and I know she was praying over me, and she was going to to her prayer closet, on me. But I was just like, hey, you know what? I'm not ready to to cut this out. I'm still lying.
So you told her you wasn't ready to stop?
No, I didn't tell her that. I just did not. Like, hey, I would lie and say I'm done. Like, hey, I'm not talking to this person. And I would stop talking to this one person, but I'm going to start talking to somebody else. Like, okay, I'm going on to the next person. And so what happened, and I couldn't believe it, she moved on.
I made vows. I broke them. Hindsight, I didn't comprehend the gravity of the exchange of this solemn promise, a vow, before God and man. It's time to unpack these sacred words so that I never take this oath lightly, ever again. I'm Laterras Whitfield, and this is the Marriage Vows series on the Dear Future Wifey podcast.
Welcome to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. I'm your host, Laterras Whitfield. Let me tell you something. I'm so excited about this episode. But before we get started, let's take care of some house cleaning. Are you shacking up with us? If you're still shacking up with us, then make sure that you hit that subscription button and let's make a commitment. We're going to be going through a powerful series. It's an 8-part series called the Marriage Vow series. And it's going to get extremely transparent. And so I've been praying and asking God to bring the right guest on the podcast to be able to unpack these vows. I'll have people that have had successful marriages, those that have been divorced, and those that are trying to figure it out, or they've lost their loved ones due to the last vow, which is to death do us part. But it's going to get extremely, extremely transparent. The first episode kicked off last week with Kaylin and Kyra, and we're just going to go a little bit deeper. We first need to unpack where these marriage vows came from. And the Book of Common Prayer was first introduced in 1549. And this is where we get our marriage vows. And they've changed throughout time to take out certain words or take out certain phrases that people don't like, such as to obey. A lot of women didn't like that. so they took that out of the marriage vows. But today we're going to talk about to have and to hold. So I'm excited to have today's guest on the podcast. Now, we met in a very unconventional way, but as God would see fit, it was all by design. So without further ado, welcome to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. My new homie, Gerri Fisher.
What's going on, guys?
Man, what's going on?
Glad to be here.
Man, you're in the hot seat right now. How
yes,
you feel?
Sir. Yes, sir. It's a little warm.
I know it, man. Listen, first of all, I just want to thank you for being open and vulnerable, because you're going to be extremely vulnerable today, sharing your testimony as we begin to unpack what this vow actually means to you, to have and to hold. I'm going to read it, and then you tell me what it means to you. To have and to hold refers to the physical embrace of a husband and wife. To have is to receive without reservation the total self-gift of the other. It's not a statement of ownership, but rather a promise of unconditional acceptance. To hold is a pledge of physical affection and tenderness, a vow to be available to the other in body and soul, a promise to cherish, value, and protect the other as we would a prized treasure. To have and to hold is truly a statement of poetry.
Yes, it is. Yes,
so, Gerry, what does that mean to you?
To have and to hold, basically what it means to me, definitely like what you just read, to receive a gift, a person that you're about to marry is giving themselves to you, and you're to receive that without any doubt, that you're sure this is the person that you want to be with for the rest of your life. And to hold, like it says, is to value that person and to protect that which you value.
Right.
So that's the basic definition that it means to me.
So, all right, Gerry. So, have you been married before?
Oh, get right into it.
Yeah, we're going to jump right on in.
Yes, I have been married before. Was married almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations on the 20 years. That's powerful.
Thank you.
And how long ago was that?
About 10 years ago.
And so when we look at to have and to hold, how was that vow violated in your marriage by you?
Just to start out, how it was violated for me was I just stepped outside of my marriage. I did not. I stopped looking at my wife as a gift. I started thinking other things outside of my house was a gift, and I didn't protect her, and I didn't value her anymore. So.
So was that something conscious? Was that something conscious when you got married? Did you believe that, hey, men just, men, there's no way to be faithful? Did you start marriage with the intentions of being faithful? You saying I'm never going to cheat, or did you say, hey, listen, I mean, I've seen cheating all my life. I'm gonna make sure that I cover my wife, quote unquote, making sure she don't find out about it. But I mean, come on, how you gonna be faithful to somebody your whole life?
Yeah, your whole life. I actually thought it would be easy. I thought I was ready for it. I thought being faithful was just an easy thing. You just decide you want to be faithful, and you just be faithful. Now on this side, I realize that there's some training, there's some learning that goes with it. There's some therapy that goes with that. But yeah, when I got married, man, I was happy. I was. Tears coming down my eyes
when she walked down the aisle.
When I see her coming down the aisle, and like, hey, this is it. The death do us part. And when I said those vows at that time, I didn't know I was reciting them.
Right.
And see, there's a difference for me than reciting them instead of giving an oath.
Talk about
reciting is you just repeating what someone's saying.
Talk about it.
And if you're giving a oath, that means you are pledging exactly to what you're saying. You're pledging to have and to hold. If we look at an oath, we look at every profession. We look at every profession that you could think of has an oath. If you look at a CPA, you look at a doctor, there's some training that goes into it. There's some time, some studying that goes into it. And once they finish with that, there's an exam and they give an oath. And when they give an oath, they are upholding that oath.
Come on.
And that is what I believe was different when I got married, is that I recited exactly what the minister said, but I wasn't giving an oath to my wife at that time. I'm giving an oath to her. It's like, hey, I value this. I'm pledging everything that I'm saying.
Yes.
I believe in this because I have studied before I got married to you. And what I mean by studying is my late pastor, Dr. Gerri Wesley, wrote a book that said, if this marriage is made in heaven, why I'm going through hell. I actually read that book after, my divorce. And
if this marriage was made in heaven?
Yes, if this marriage is made in heaven.
Why am I going through hell? Oh,
yes.
That's good.
Yes.
That's good. That's
definitely it.
Former pastor of what, Antioch?
Antioch.
Yes.
Antioch
Yes.
Baptist Church. Yes.
Yes. Man, powerful pastor.
Yes,
and so you read that book after your divorce?
Yes, after my divorce. And so there's a chapter that's in the book that talks about the green-eyed monster. And the green-eyed monster is just talking about, things that happen outside of the marriage, those temptations. And if I would have read it before, I would have been prepared for those temptations.
Yeah.
I would have knew how to flee from these temptations, and I would have knew several things that I would have been prepared for. I just thought once you get married, all desires, outside desires,
just disappear.
Stop.
Yeah.
Like it just disappeared.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm married and
I'm good.
I'm good. I'm good. That's it.
And so when he talks about the green-eyed monster, what was that green-eyed monster for you?
The green-eyed monster for me, definitely just other women. When it came to other women, it was more of, I just felt like my manhood was being attacked. At the time, going through some financial situations with the economy, loss of jobs. That was the only one working at the time. We had a young son. He was about 2 years old at that time. And a lot of stuff was just going on. And when you're struggling and you don't have those answers, and as a man, you feel like you're supposed to have all the answers.
Yes.
That you just, every question that's given of you, you're supposed to have that answer. And I didn't have those answers, and I was getting frustrated and didn't know how to show vulnerability, did not know how to show that I was afraid.
Yes.
That, hey, I don't know what our next step is going to be. And so because I had those fears and didn't know how to communicate that to my wife at the time, I started listening to outside influences.
Yeah.
You know, so I started, as the vow says, to hold. I was supposed to protect. And protection means like, hey, I could have just kept it as me and her.
Yes.
And not add outside forces. And once I started adding those outside forces, I started listening to what these other women were saying.
Right.
Making me feel like I was a man, like, hey, if I had you, it would be like this and
Yes.
that. And not realizing that was destroying my marriage, making everything actually, worse than what it
Yes.
really was.
So when you first cheated, the first time you cheated on your wife, how did you feel? And what said that? A lot of women want to know. They want to know, like, what makes a man step outside of his marriage? Why? And do we ever have any type of remorse? Do we ever feel guilt from it? I want you to unpack that, and then I'll share mine.
Okay. So the first time I cheated, the reason why I stepped out, like I just said, was because of me not feeling valued,
Right.
and me not being able to communicate, to my wife about what I needed and how I felt valued, and all these fears just started coming up, like I wasn't adding up at the time because there was financial problems.
Right.
And if I was the man, I was supposed to solve these problems.
Yes.
I didn't know how. So the first time I cheated, there was a lot of guilt. So much guilt, man. On the way home, I cried.
Yep.
There was tears. I couldn't believe, I let her down. I honestly was thinking, man, I'm going to hell.
Yep.
I'm just condemning myself. I'm beating myself up. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I had a hard time looking at her.
Did you go home and immediately take a shower?
I immediately took a shower.
Exactly
I went
what I
home,
did.
immediately took a shower. And I was just silent. And then I just started noticing, I started becoming distant
Yep.
from, my wife and my son. That I just, I thought I was being a man by stepping out, but I felt less than a man by
Yep.
stepping out at that time.
I remember when I first stepped out, it was the most, like the first time I avoided, and it was me going back to a woman that I had messed around with way before I got married. And that was a comfort zone for me.
Yes.
And so I went back there, and the first time I was just like, nah, I can't do it. So I avoided it the first time. Second time I come back, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna shoot it. What's the use? I did it before, so what's one more time with the same person?
Yeah.
And so I did it, and when I tell you, I wanted to throw up. I was in the car, and I was just like, because I literally felt, and I don't think people really talk about this, and that's the reason I wanted you to speak on this. You literally feel a tearing away in the covenant. I felt it. I felt it spiritually. I felt it physically with tears streaming down my face, like you experienced driving home, and I felt like a veil was lifted.
Yeah.
And that she could see my sin. I felt like I was exposed, and I was like, oh my God, like I know she sees me. I'm a cheater. I know she can see this.
Yeah, I know.
And I just felt so dirty that I went straight to the shower and I took a shower, thinking that I could wash off my sin and that she wouldn't smell the funk of my sin on me. And I was like, yeah, let me wash it off. And then I felt, then those awkward moments come where now you're going to have sex with your wife the first time after that. Then it's like, oh, this is
different.
Yeah, it's different. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like your whole mind is just racing. But the unfortunate thing about it is that when you're not God can't heal what you won't reveal.
Yes.
So as scary as that moment was, I should have opened up and shared with her, like, listen, this is what I do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's almost virtually impossible for a lot of men to actually do. But I knew if I did that and if I would have killed that Goliath early on, I wouldn't have become a repeat offender. And so I kept on doing it throughout my marriage. Anytime that there was any type of brokenness in my marriage, any type of void, I go self-medicate with some woman, you know? And so and I never ever read the marriage vow to have and to hold. We said it, but I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know what that meant.
You don't know what it means.
And so I'm going, oh my God, that's a protective place for both of us to be in, for both of us to be in this intimate space with each other to where we have and we hold each other in our brokenness, to be able to hold each other, to have, meaning that she should never deny me sex. I should never deny her sex. We should find this place of vulnerability with each other to where we're providing each other's needs. And so that's quite interesting. I want you to talk about how did that progress? So you cheated on her the first time, and then what happened?
I mean, just the same thing. Every time there was a problem, I mean, just you run back to what you're familiar to.
Yes.
It's just like a drug. Once you get that first taste of it, I mean, you feel guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, just like someone using drugs, once they get that high and they come off of it, they feel guilty. So every time there was a problem, every time there was an issue, every time something was broke within the marriage, instead of communicating, I would just, go back to what I was used to. And you're right. A lot of times, if you open up and early, which I didn't,
who does?
My ex-wife started finding out about it. Through phone messages and actually seeing me speak, to a young lady at the time that I was messing with. And
she saw you on the phone, or she saw you?
No, she actually saw me in person talking to the person. She never, never caught me, but she knew.
Yeah,
she definitely knew, and she wanted me to confess to it. But
what you kept saying? No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I kept saying no. Just like and I just studied this, man. I looked at the Bible. A lot of men in the Bible, just like David.
Yeah,
I mean, you just try to hide it.
Yep.
Just like. Jacob and all of them in the Bible, the first thing you do is just try to hide it.
Yes.
To protect yourself.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about infidelity, I mean, it's just like, in the garden, when Adam and Eve, that first sin stepped in, they run and hide. But I was just like you. I felt it soon as, you had the forbidden fruit. You could feel that detachment.
Yep.
Immediately you feel it, and you start being different.
Yep.
And when I would walk into the house, I felt like two different people.
Yes.
Like, here I am, I'm supposed to be a husband, a provider, a father, but then I'm over here, I'm this different man. So, it was very difficult.
Did you ever talk to any of your friends about it?
No, I didn't. I didn't. The friends I had, they was doing the exact same thing.
So does that make you feel a little justified? Like when you look at the influences in this world, whether it's your immediate circle or just the world at large, is infidelity really looked at or frowned upon as being bad?
Not amongst men.
Yeah.
Not amongst men. Growing up, starting out from middle school to high school to college, as men, we get patted on the back.
Yes.
For wrongdoing.
Yep.
And when a woman does the exact same thing, she's actually outcast.
Yeah.
So being in a marriage and you're stepping out, I mean, you're not, it's not frowned upon. You're actually applauded.
Yep.
And I mean, you don't receive an award for it, but I mean, it definitely feels good. Well, it did feel good, receiving
the accolades.
The accolades from your male friends. Because a lot of times as males, especially, black males, we don't receive
A lot of approval.
a lot of approval from our fathers.
I want you to talk about this because this was dope. This is a perfect segue. Before we push record on this episode, you revealed something powerful today to me.
Okay.
And what did you say?
Man, currently I'm 51, just turned 51 this year. Earlier this year, before I turned 51, so in 50 years, I have never heard my father ever tell me that he was proud of me. He called me up, and I was trying to avoid his calls, and when I finally answered his calls and he said it, I'm proud of you. Man, it did something to me. It was 50 years kind of late, but it definitely was, better late than never. But it actually started helping me to heal. It is definitely something that I tell my son all the time, that I love him and that I'm proud of him. A lot of times we hear, I'm proud of you from a female.
Yep.
That's where I was getting, I'm proud of you.
Yes.
I never got, I'm proud of you from, from my fraternity brothers, from my male friends.
Go and call out your frat. I know you want to call them out with us.
Oh, yes, I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the immediate past president of the Zeta Lambda chapter, the North Dallas Alphas.
There it is.
Yes,
there it is.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's important is because another part of how we met was very interesting, and we'll talk about that. But I want to stay on this. Your father made you proud. Your father said that he was proud of you, and it made you feel what?
Man, internally it made me like I really felt that I did something good. I did something that I got his approval. I got his acceptance. And I realized a lot of my behavior, a lot of my issues, a lot of my acting out, a lot of my cheating, just call it what it is, my bad decisions was trying to get approval from my male friends. And once my father said it, like, man, I got his approval. He approves of me. So as the whole entire time, I never thought my father approved of anything that I did.
What made him say it?
I did a post on my page, which I was going to delete my father, but I did a post on my page where I was actually speaking to my son about valuing himself.
Was it a video?
It was actually a video, and he actually seen it, and I was encouraged to do that, and I was led to do that by actually watching your podcast.
Oh, really?
Yes,
by
watching your podcast.
What episode made you feel that?
The podcast with Essen Atkins.
Oh.
That podcast. When I seen that, it was sent to me, and so it ministered to me. So I thought, you know what, if there's some things that I wished I would have known as a boy growing up, as a young man, I wish these things were told to me. And so I decided, like, hey, you know what, I want to do a video talking to my son. Good. Telling him how to value himself, that he doesn't have to sleep with every woman that in his presence, that a king doesn't do that. A king goes for a queen, and a king can identify a queen. But my behavior, that I didn't know I was having bad behavior, I was just whatever, man. If this chick was fine, like, hey, that's what I was doing.
That's about to get me really emotional. I know exactly what part you're talking about in that episode. And I said that men were never told that.
Yes.
And it's wow. Like that's thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that. We never ever discussed that. And it's yeah, that's powerful. That's absolutely powerful. And that's the whole thing, is that we can start changing the generational curses and start making them generational blessings, where we can speak blessings over our offspring and affirm them in a way that we were never affirmed, or speak life into them in a way that we were never modeled from our parents or whatnot. And so that's powerful. How did you and I meet?
Oh, so how we met? Let's see. How do I say this? An ex girlfriend of mine. I made a bad decision. That's why we broke up. I broke her heart. I hurt her. And one day, I don't know. I guess she decided to send over the podcast that you was doing with Essen Atkins at the time. And when I seen it, I actually thought she was being messy. I thought she was like, "Hey, why you sending me this video?" Because it was actually ministering to me. And, you know, when it's true,
and making you mad.
when it was true ministry, it cuts you. It
mad.
makes you look at yourself. And that podcast was ministering to me, and she sent it over. And at the time, I actually seen her and I a part of that. And, you know, she's, I thank her for, you know, for doing that, introducing me to you.
It was so interesting because she had texted me. She was like, "Hey, my ex wants your phone number," and I was like, "Huh?" And he's like, "Yeah, your podcast episode really spoke to him," but she never told me which one it was.
Yeah,
and so I said, "Sure, give my number." And then as soon as I sent it to him, you called me like immediately. And it was the most powerful conversation I've ever had with anybody pertaining to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. And that meant a lot to me. It really, and that was just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it was just a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, when I seen it, you know, I seen a lot of mistakes that I made. I seen the mistakes that I made even with her. And that encouraged me to start, you know, counseling, which started counseling this week. Just this week. And it had me start getting to myself because what I did, I was actually hurt behind my actions, and then realized the actions hurt her and actually destroyed her. And I felt real bad about it. Like, hey, man, you know, why am I making these decisions and not realizing the same decisions that I had made and, you know, my marriage and other relationships, I was still doing it. What I was doing was, you know, she's, you know, when I lie, you know, she's a great person, sweet, you know, very smart.
Really dope individual.
Yeah, she's real dope.
Yeah.
And dating her, I actually felt like I didn't deserve somebody that sweet, that giving, you know, giving a heart, giving, you know, telling me that she's proud of me, you know, she's pushing me, you know, to be better. And I just ran back to what I was familiar with. And when she sent that podcast, that's why I thought she was being messy. Like, hey, you being messy. Why you sending this to me? And I was texting her like, hey, why you sending this to me? Stop. You know, cut it out.
But you watched it though.
I watched it. It just took a while. It took a while to watch it. I had to, you know, I actually, you know, it was just hard to watch because it was so true and it was so real, everything that you guys were saying. And at that time, immediately, you know, I made a vow like, hey, you know what, I'm going to go abstinence. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get to myself so I never make, you know, this bad decision again.
That's powerful.
Because a lot of people don't realize when men make decisions and they're bad, there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes with it. And we stay in that guilt and shame. Mm-hmm. And it's hard coming out of it. And it's hard being vulnerable and admitting that you made a mistake.
Yes.
Because they're going to continuously beat you up. They're not going to let you live it down. Mm-hmm. Although they say they forgive you. Like, hey, they're going to remind you every time, like, hey, you're still that person. Yeah. That you are that decision that you made. Like, no, hey, look, I made a bad decision, but I'm not
that bad decision.
You know, that bad decision. So when I watched that podcast, man, it was like, and she had sent other podcasts to me, and I looked at it like, yeah, you know, it was a great podcast. You know, I didn't think too much of it. And once she sent that, I was hooked. And I stopped shacking up with you.
I stopped
shacking up and subscribed.
It was so crazy. You called me like, man, you said, man, I had to take the day off. He said, I had to call in sick. I'm messed up right now. I am so emotionally broken right now. I've just been sitting at the house. I'm sad. I'm crying. People thinking like, what's wrong? You have COVID? What's going on? He was like, I'm just messed up.
I was truly messed up. I really had, and I told her this, early June, man, I had a bad day where I was actually in depression. And I wanted to give up. I really did. I made a bad decision. There's no way I could turn this around. I made, I destroyed my life. Like, how could I do this to her and to myself? And when she sent that podcast, man, I just cried all the way home. And I was listening to it, and I'm like, man, they picking on me. They picking on me. Like, leave me alone. And so the next day, man, it drained me so bad that and bad, good.
Draining.
It drained me in a good way. Like,
you.
hey, it was just ministering to me, and man, and the next day I just had to take off.
Yeah.
And I laid in the bed, and it was like, okay, Lord, why are we crying? I'm a grown man. Because as a grown man, you're not supposed to cry.
Be sitting there crying in the bed.
Because they teach you when you're a little boy, like, hey, I watched the video. People calling me like, hey, man, what's up with you? Like, I'm good. I got a little dust in my eye. But yeah, it definitely ministered to me. And man, it was a blessing that she sent it to me, because instantly I started making steps for my life to be better. I didn't want to do those things that I did.
So you start making steps such as what? What are some action items you put and you said? Because one thing you said, didn't you say you started apologizing to the people you did wrong?
So what I did was I apologized to a couple of females that were significant to me. I apologized to our mutual friend, my ex, which I call Fire. I called her and I apologized to her. And at the same time, it's like I hear people always talking about the spirit. And I'm like, man, what that mean? Once I start getting in prayer, once I seen the video, I start getting in prayer and start spending time, with God myself, and accepting God. Like,
yes.
Truly accepting God. Like, hey, I'm not just going to church, but accepting God. So as I was talking to Fire at the time, I said, hey, let me do something. Let me pray for you and with you. And I started praying for her, and man, I was just tore up. I was drained with praying with her, and just confessing some of the stuff that I had did to her. And then once I did that with her, the spirit was like, hey, call this other person. You hurt her real bad. And I was like, Lord, no, not me. Like, no, man, they gonna hate me. They gonna think I'm crazy. And so I called up another young lady that I hurt, and I knew I hurt real bad. And I prayed with her as well. I prayed over her. I prayed over her future. I wanted to step in place of every man that had hurt her before me, and
everybody
and else. Me as well.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want to stand in and take that for you. I wanted to go to the cross.
Yeah.
As I was saying, I wanted to go to the cross for all the hurt that I had caused them. And then, I was done. Like, I'm like, God, there's nobody else. And so I called up the last person and, talked to her, prayed with her. She actually wanted to meet me in person and talk. And I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to do something for you, just confessing everything I had done to her. I said, you know what? I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to allow you to hit me. I'm allow you to slap me.
Slap the
She's like, no, I'm not going to do that. But she got me. She got me real good. She showed me the fear of finding out that I had, cheated on her and that I hurt her. And when she gave me a glimpse of it, And I was getting upset, like, "Hey, why would you lie to me?" And so I'm like, "Why would you lie to me?" She hit me.
So what she told you was that she had cheated on you before?
No, she actually told me something else, something different, and it was like, oh man, it just got me, and she actually hit me at that time.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing that you said that about like if she said she had cheated on me before, and these women, I don't believe they actually had cheated on me before. I believe that they truly loved me, and wanted the best for me. And I did them wrong. But going back to when I was married and cheating and doing what I was doing, my ex-wife really did want to make it work. And, I know she was praying over me, and, she was going to her prayer closet, on me. But, I was just like, hey, you know what? I'm not ready to, to cut this out. I'm still lying.
So you told her you wasn't ready to stop?
No, I didn't tell her that. I just did not. Like, hey, I would lie and say I'm done. Like, hey, I'm not talking to this person. I would stop talking to this one person, but I go start talking to somebody else. Like, okay, I'm going on to the next person. And so what happened, and I couldn't believe it, she moved on. She started talking to somebody else. And man, it tore me up. And I was like, I had been with several of the women. Yeah. And here it is. She was finna start dating this one person after all this time. And it messed me up. Man, I was so mad. I was like, oh my God, how can she want another man? Like she should only want me. And she like, no. Like, this is evil. Like, she is wrong. And it tore me up. And I couldn't sleep at night. And I just, started losing weight. And I was just like, and I just lost it. Yeah. I just lost it, man. And I was calling her every day, and I wanted her to stop talking to the guy and like, hey, give me another chance. She was like, nah, you just want that because I'm seeing somebody else. And it's like, yeah, that's okay.
Would you have stopped? If she'd have came back.
I believe, I think I would have. I don't know. I don't think I would have. I think she, I truly look back at the situation that she did the right thing. Yeah. She did the right thing, and she's doing good. She's in a successful relationship now, and and I truly pray for that relationship. That
you truly pray for the success of it.
I truly pray for that success of it.
Tell me why.
Because she was a good person.
Good.
She's a good person. She's a great mother, and she deserves to be happy. The same way that, the three individuals that I pray for, even our mutual friend, I pray for her and, pray for her success. And that's as she said, that's a real grown up thing.
It is a grown up.
Like, hey, man, because this is the last time I'm like, hey, I want you to stop seeing this dude. And I know I changed. I know I will never run back to that. Like, hey, please stop seeing this dude. Please. I gave out a list. I gave out a list of things of why she should take me back. And, once I started seeing her date somebody else, it was real hard.
It was a day late and a dollar short.
Yeah, but, they truly deserve to be with somebody.
Yeah, I pray for my ex-wife, and I pray that she, meet somebody and get married and live happily ever after.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like because when you have good people, you like, I want you to,
very good people.
I want you to marry. I want you to be happy. I want you to get what I wasn't able to give you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and that's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said something in our first conversation. You said, "Laterras, where were you at 5 years ago?"
Yeah, exactly.
If you was around 5 years ago, you may have said something to me that would have stopped me making all these bad decisions. Do you remember what I said to you?
That I think I remember you saying something about I would have met the old person.
I said, 5 years ago, you'd have met the old me, and I was cheating on my wife just like you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, so, and you was like, but you seem like your life is all perfect. It's like you got it all together. Man, I said, no, you seeing Laterras 3.0. I said, back in December was when I first took the vow of abstinence. So I'm talking about even in earlier that year, my son Armani was telling me, Dad, what are you doing having sex and you're a Christian? He called me to the carpet on that. He saw some condoms in the armrest of my car, and he was like, Dad, what are you doing with these? I was like, what do you think I'm doing with these? He was like, you ain't supposed to be having sex and you a Christian, you ain't married. I said, oh Lord, this dude over here is cop blocking. What is wrong with this boy?
Exactly.
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? And I couldn't even, say nothing. I was like, man, hey, and I made some joke about how you think I get by with raising you. I need a stress reliever.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And so, but that sat with me for the longest. That happened in the month of June. Yes. And it stayed with me all the way into December when I took a vow of abstinence, because I can't, right is right. You know what I'm saying? And if your own son is telling you that he expects a higher level from you, then my goodness, like what we talking about? So
man, that's amazing that you had that story, and I just heard that for the first time.
Yeah.
My son, called me to the carpet. Just, we were sitting in the living room, and man, he just. I was trying to give him advice on not to make the mistakes that I had made and that I was making. And he just started talking to me about it and started, I never knew that he had paid attention. Mm-hmm. Even when I was with his mother, that he was paying attention.
To everything you were doing.
Everything I was doing. And my son knew the mistakes that I was making. He knew, hey, you're with this woman, I see her. She's not right for you. I know you're not happy with her. I see you with this woman, and I see that you're happy with her, but yet you keep running back to this person. And when my son just started saying that, man, I felt real low.
How old is he?
My son is 22 as of today.
And he talked to you like
man, he just talked to me. And I was like, wow, man, I didn't know he was paying attention. My son started remembering, started talking about, I remember this woman. And I was like, what?
How you remember that?
How you remember that? I'm like, are you for her? Yeah, she had a daughter, right? Yeah. I remember this woman. Yeah, she was a photographer. I remember this person.
He's just running them down, and you had no idea.
I'm thinking hey, I'm keeping this away from him. Wow. Your mom gonna kill me when she find this out. And so I didn't even know. And I guess he had conversations, with his mom, because when I was going through my change. When I was saying I didn't want to do this anymore, she called me up and she told me she just wanted me to be better. She wanted me to be happy. And that's the same thing as these amazing women that I prayed for. They all said hey, look, you deserve to be happy. Because at that time, in that guilt and shame, hey, look, I deserve to be talked to, badly. I deserve to be treated badly. So I was dating someone that talked to me, badly. But I didn't know the effect that I was having on my son.
There it is.
I didn't know. I really didn't. I didn't know he was paying attention to me. And man, so I actually asked him to pray for me.
Ooh!
I actually asked him to pray for me. And man, that was the hardest thing to do, when my son prayed for me. And even now, he calls me. This past weekend, he called me and was like, "Hey, Dad, are you all right?"
Good.
He knew I had went back to my mom's hometown just to be to myself, to go over to the lake and watch the sun go up and watch the sun go down, and to reflect on all the bad decisions that I have made. And basically just leave it there.
Yes.
So at that time, that was my altar.
Yes.
I'm leaving this here. All these bad decisions. And when I go back home, I'm not making these bad decisions. I'm going back after everything that I lost. I'm going back after to have and to hold.
Well, let me tell you something. When I tell you, bro, that is so powerful, to make your altar wherever that altar is,
yes,
and leave it there. Don't carry that shame anymore. Don't carry those bad decisions anymore. That the Bible says that Paul states, now I've learned to boast in my weakness.
Yes.
And so when you're ashamed of it, you can't get on no podcast and talk about your scars because you're too ashamed of it. You don't want to let women know that you cheated before. You don't want to let them know that. You just, I'm ashamed of that. But when you get free and set free, you can sit like you're sitting right next to me and say, yeah, I did it, but that's not me anymore. That's the old me. That's the 2.0 version of me. This is 3.0 sitting in front of you. And yes, I did that in the past, and God has forgiven me. I've forgiven myself, which is the hardest thing to do.
Oh man, I'm still on that.
Is to forgive yourself. I pray right now that you release that bondage, that you release those strongholds in your life, and you forgive yourself, because you can't walk as the 3.0 version of Gerry as long as you keep on carrying the past.
Yeah, man, I believe God has forgiven me, and that's the hardest part.
Is forgiving yourself.
It's forgiving myself, and like I tell people, when I tell my story, and even when I tell it, on Facebook, I did come out and be vulnerable on Facebook.
And you texted me that morning. I
texted it. I sent it over to you like, hey, look at this. I just came out and I wanted to be real about the mistakes that I have made, and I hurt, some individuals in the process. And what I started feeling like was like, hey, women say they pray for a God, a God-fearing man. And I always wonder, now do they realize what that means? They're like, hey, I'm Paul now, but I used to be Saul. Saul persecuted the church. He was a murderer. I used to be Jacob. I was a deceiver. I was a trickster. And I had to have that experience that changed me to my new name. That's who I am now. And I understand, I have a lot of friends that is with me through this process. I do have a tribe, which I learned to have a tribe.
Got to.
Man,
accountability.
Man, God, our mutual friend taught me a lot, about having a good tribe around you. So I have some, men and women that are around me, and they holding me accountable. How are you doing? Are you praying? Don't go back to your old self.
Yes.
They know I wanted to make that change. And where we are right now to this day is like, Gerry, you got to forgive yourself.
Yes.
You got to forgive yourself. And I'm praying on that one.
How'd your first counseling session go?
Man, it went good. It went good. I was nervous. Like, man, Lord, when is she gonna find out? Because I walked in that counseling session like, man, I got this bad guy disease or something. Like, doc, is it curable? Like, can we cure this thing? I don't want to go through this. Like, am I gonna die? Like, dog, am I gonna die? Like, I walked in, I was nervous the whole entire day. I was anxious and had a lot of friends like, hey, it's gonna be okay.
When I say God is so intentional about his pursuit of us, and God is intentionally pursuing you, and there's gonna be some great exploits from you, because even your frat brothers that will hear this episode, you don't realize what people are dealing with, what people are struggling with, and they say, dang, bro, like, I've never heard anyone talk like that before. And it's only you could have said it the way you said it that changes the trajectory of someone else's life. And that's what we have to understand. And the fact of how you and I met just by happenstance, our mutual friend shared this video. You didn't have to say you want to talk to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, man, and I believe that was God sent. But, a problem that as men that we have of coming out, being vulnerable and doing what we're doing now, it's hard because some of our friends are still in that.
Yep.
And we know they're going to be judged. And as I was driving to my mom's hometown, I had this sadness in me, and I couldn't understand why I was feeling sad, and I was feeling alone. And I realized, like, about 2 or 3 days later, what it was. That this change I'm going through, I'm going to lose some friends.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's scary to know. You was
already grieving the loss of them.
I was already grieving the loss. Like, hey, some of my friends, they're going to talk about me. They're going to laugh about it because they are used to the old Gerry.
Yeah,
that talk about women and like, hey, I have to, talk about my conquests.
Yeah,
to fit in.
Yeah.
But now, like, hey, look, dude, I don't want to do that. You know, I want a monogamous relationship. I want the death do you part. I want the have
and to hold. There it is.
I want to have and to hold.
I mean, you might have lost some friends, but I think I'm a good person. You done gained me in the process.
Hey, you're a good friend to have.
Yeah. So we done gained each other. So we gonna be each other's accountability partners, man. And the dope thing about it is, yes, you're gonna lose some people, but you're gonna start gaining a new tribe, and that tribe is gonna propel you into your purpose. Because you don't go through the level of pain that you and I have gone through without God rewarding us with our purpose and our platform that he's given you. And that's why I say I just thank you so much, because as you're telling your story, it's pouring into me, and I'm doing everything in my power not to break down and cry because you're saying some stuff that I just be like, God, when you talked about getting a new name, man, and we really understood what that really meant, and of course you're in the fraternity, so when you're in the fraternity, they give you names and stuff as you cross over and you get names or whatever.
Yeah, mine's on my license plate. Oh man, yeah, mine is Jack Frost, and man, I lived up to that. I tried to live up to that name, but man, it's hard. And even now, I'm just like you, trying to hold it back.
Yeah,
I told a friend of mine as I was coming over, man, I just try not to cry.
Yeah,
because when you're coming out of it, man, I've been crying so much.
Yeah.
Of that guilt and that shame and just releasing that. And I definitely wanted to unbury some of the stuff that I didn't bury correctly, and now just burying it correctly and not going back to it. Man,
hold on, you got to unpack that. What do you mean by burying it correctly?
Burying it correctly, man, I buried some stuff alive, didn't address it, didn't understand why I did, some of the things that I did. Man, just, focus on the hurt that I had caused. And, looking at me and looking at myself and answering the questions of, was I seeking acceptance? Was I tolerating myself? So unburying stuff is unburying some of the stuff in my past was going back, years. I went all the way back to college.
Yep.
And started thinking about some of the things that I did to girls in college. Now, of course, I didn't call everybody up and I just prayed for them.
Yep. Or you can write a letter and burn it or throw it in the trash. It's just releasing it. Even just recalling it to memory and asking God, please forgive me for this and heal that person.
Yeah, exactly.
From what I caused. So that's powerful, man. Like I said, I applaud you on that process, because what you don't understand, that the spiritual ramifications of what you are doing, you will never, ever really understand the magnitude, but it's great and mighty in the kingdom. It was interesting because we was talking, and then you revealed to me the fraternity you're a part of, and I said, hey, I just shot a video a couple of days ago because Alpha Phi Alpha, they're coming to Dallas, Texas in 2023 and doing convention. And he was like, I just saw that video. I said, I produced the video, and I had a 24-hour turnaround time to do it. He was like, I just saw the video, and I was like, man, it's crazy. You know what I'm saying?
It is definitely crazy.
It's so intentional about who God is. What would you say, as we wrap up? What would you say to those that are approaching marriage? And speak directly about that vow to have and to hold. And I want you to speak to the men and speak directly into that camera right there and speak to the man that's approaching marriage and how to honor that vow.
Man, what I would say to men that are about to get married, to have and to hold, understand that you're making an oath, and understanding what it truly means to have and to hold, to understand that the woman that you're about to marry is truly a gift from God. And once you guys get married, that God wants you to hold her as a treasure. Man, it's like we all want money. We all want to be rich. It's like you're marrying $1 million. And reason why I say it like that is because we're not going to leave $1 million sitting around at Starbucks and just walk away from it. We're not just going to treat $1 million like anything. We're going to value that. We're going to treasure that. And even throughout the Word of God, when he speaks of hold, hold to his word, hold this near and dear to your heart, like protect it. And so as you are about to get married, understand what protecting her means.
Yes.
It's not just standing up to another male. It is protecting her heart.
Yes.
Protecting, you're her ministry.
Yes.
So that's the advice that I would give you to all the men that are about to get married. And man, just read and pray because times are going to get hard.
Yeah.
And once you remember that is your gift and you're treasuring that, man, I always make an example of my son. When my son was born, he was a gift to me. And I treasured him to my heart. And I don't care whose son come along. I don't care how many other kids are out there. I'm not trading my son in.
Yes.
And I am going to protect him, rain or shine, through disappointments, proud moments. I love my son. And so as men, as we are getting married to that treasure, no matter disappointment, rain, sunshine, hold to it and don't try to trade it in. Don't trade it in.
He said, don't trade
Don't
it in.
trade it in.
Don't trade it in. Well, listen, man, thank you so much for blessing us on the Dear Future Wifey podcast. I know you were a little nervous at first. You was like, what am I doing?
Sir.
Am I actually finna sit on this podcast?
I'm about to get dogged out.
You're like, we didn't know each other, but how long we know each other? About 2.5 weeks?
About 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks. Yes, sir.
And then God got you sitting up here on the Dear Future Wifey
Dear
podcast.
Future Wifey podcast.
The same podcast that changed the trajectory of your life is now God is using you to change other people's lives.
Man, I hope it's
Isn't God dope like that?
He is dope like
See,
that.
God has
Yes,
purpose in your life. And so I just want to speak that over you, that God is going to do some great exploits through you because you made yourself available and vulnerable for him to use you.
Man, thank you, man. I'm receiving that blessing.
Keep healing, brother. Like I said, we on the same team. I'm a part of your tribe. You're a part of my tribe. And what you don't realize is that, as you know, the Dear Future Wifey podcast is my journey as I discover, uncover, and recover love for myself, so that my next wife gets the best version of me.
Exactly.
And before we conclude, do you want to get married again?
I do. And I'm actually writing letters now to my dear future wife.
Look at you.
So yeah, I see that, and I was giving the advice like, hey, why don't you write a letter to your wife? So
when I get
your
some
future wife.
When I get some new journals in, I just placed the order. But when I get some more journals in, I'm gonna gift you with one. That's powerful.
Thank you. Yes. So.
Thank you, man. I'm gonna cry when I get in the car.
So I'm 3 letters in now.
That's what I'm talking about. Oh, that's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. Man, you have blessed my life. Listen, y'all give it up for Gerri Fisher on the Dear Future Wifey podcast.
Thank you.
Discover, uncover, recover love with the new Dear Future collection. The journey starts from within. Let your inner thoughts find freedom on the pages of this richly hued Dear Future Blue Sapphire Edition genuine leather journal. It features a cross-stitched spine and luxurious cording to bind your deepest insights. A great accompaniment is the Dear Future Luxury Bamboo Fountain Pen. There's nothing more intentional than the writing process of a fountain pen. This is an elegant writing work of art. Join the thriving community of fountain pen enthusiasts and purchase one today. These exclusive items and more are available at dearfuturewifey.com.
I mean, I can't even describe it. The words can't express how I see God doing an amazing work through this series, and I pray that it touches the hearts and the minds of the people that are watching it. Whether you're single, it gives you hope and help you understand the gravity of these vows. if you're married, that you recommit yourself with the new knowledge of the gravity of these vows. And if you're divorced, that you get healing by understanding that you didn't truly understand the gravity of these vows. Whew, Lord, I thank you. I thank you for the favor and birthing this series through me. Dear future wifey, whether we write our own vows or repeat the traditional ones, I vow to have and to hold you. I will be your safe place. Have me. I will provide physical, emotional, and spiritual intimacy for you. I said, have me. The etymology of husband means householder. It is my responsibility to hold our house together. These are my hands. I will uphold my spiritual responsibility to hold our home together. Now, holding our home together is no easy feat. It's absolutely impossible for me to do alone. So what you don't see on the outside of my hands are the omnipotent hands of God, giving me the strength to do the impossible. I can't wait to have and to hold you. Your future hubby. Thank you for listening to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Remember, be lit, live intentionally and transparently, and don't stop loving. Make sure to subscribe to our Dear Future Wifey YouTube channel. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. We welcome your support. Simply share our podcast with your friends and family.